Hello family, welcome to Stories with Storytime. Please subscribe and leave a like for us. It means the world to us. Also share this video to your friends and loved ones and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you, as you do. Elena was born in the lively and hectic city of Atlanta, where life was a constant battle for those without wealth. Our parents, Brenda and Marcus, were hardworking but poor. Brenda sold vegetables at the city market, waking up before sunrise to secure the best spots to sell her goods. Marcus worked as a night watchman in a small warehouse. Despite their efforts, they could barely make ends meet, and they lived with their 3 children in a tiny one-room apartment in a densely populated neighborhood. Elena was the youngest and most promising of the 3 children. Brenda and Marcus had high hopes for her, believing she could accomplish what they never could, a life free from poverty. But with their limited income, they could only afford to send her to a severely underfunded public school. The classrooms were overcrowded and the teachers overwhelmed. Despite these obstacles, Elena was determined to make the most of her education, clinging to the dream of escaping the harsh life that surrounded her and her family. But as she grew older, those dreams began to dim. It felt impossible to achieve anything without money. Every path to a better future seemed blocked. After finishing school, the idea of going to college became just another unattainable dream. Our older siblings were already working to help support the family, and now it was Elena's turn, with few choices in front of her. She took a job as a cleaner in the grand estate of a billionaire named Richard. Richard was one of the wealthiest men in Atlanta, known for his vast corporate empire and extravagant lifestyle. He was married to Vanessa, a strikingly elegant woman admired by many for her charm and poise. Their lives were filled with luxury, a world apart from the hardship faced by people like Elena and her family. The estate where Elena worked was a testament to Richard's incredible fortune: marble floors, golden chandeliers, and walls lined with priceless artwork. Each day, as Elena cleaned the mansion, she couldn't help but feel a heavy sadness. The gap between Richard and Vanessa's lifestyle and her own was enormous. While our parents struggled to put food on the table, Richard and Vanessa had every desire fulfilled by a staff of servants. Elena's resentment grew as she continued working in the magnificent house. She watched Vanessa attend glamorous events and charity galas, dressed in designer outfits, living a life that seemed perfect from the outside. Richard, on the other hand, was rarely home, often away for business or hosting lavish gatherings. Despite being married to Vanessa, he was known for his reckless behavior, especially when it came to women. Richard's affairs were an open secret, and he never tried to conceal them. As Elena scrubbed the floors and dusted the furniture, she began to imagine what it would be like to have Richard's wealth. She pictured herself in Vanessa's position, living a life of luxury and ease, far from the poverty and daily struggles that defined her world. The more she thought about it, the more she desired that life. Her longing for wealth and a better future for her family grew stronger each day. She desperately wanted to change their lives. Elena's resentment deepened as she witnessed Richard's careless behavior. He would return home with different women, behaving as though he wasn't married at all. Vanessa, who frequently traveled for charity work and high society functions, seemed either unaware or unconcerned about his actions. The stark contrast between Richard's life and Elena's circumstances was glaring. She dreamed of escaping her own misfortunes and giving her family a better future. As the days passed, her envy turned into a dangerous obsession. She began plotting how she could take advantage of Richard's recklessness. One evening, while cleaning Richard's bedroom, Elena stumbled upon something that sparked an idea in her mind: a used condom, carelessly discarded after one of his many affairs. She realized that if she could somehow become pregnant with Richard's child, she might be able to demand financial support from him. The idea was both frightening and thrilling. It was risky, but the potential reward was too tempting to ignore. Elena knew she needed help to make her plan work, so she visited a doctor who could assist her. However, the doctor told her he wouldn't help unless she agreed to sleep with him. Elena was shocked but desperate. She agreed. She slept with the doctor, and the procedure was done. Weeks later, Elena discovered she was pregnant. She felt a mix of fear and excitement. This was her opportunity to change her life. Elena told her parents, Brenda and Marcus. They were angry at first. Marcus especially was upset and disappointed. But when Elena explained her plan to seek financial support from Richard so they could finally live in comfort and leave behind their struggles, Marcus's anger shifted to hope. Brenda was worried but recognized the possibility of a better future. They began focusing on how the money could improve their lives. After Elena told her parents about the pregnancy, she abruptly stopped going to work. Richard noticed her absence and tried to call her, but her phone was turned off. He was both confused and concerned, but he didn't know where Elena lived. Unable to locate her, Richard hired a new cleaner to take her place. As time went on, Richard gradually stopped thinking about Elena. He became deeply engaged with his business and personal affairs, though an uneasy feeling lingered. His marriage to Vanessa was becoming increasingly strained. They had been married for years, and, despite his hopes, they still had no children. Vanessa seemed uninterested in starting a family and was often away on charity trips. Vanessa's constant traveling made Richard feel even more isolated in their relationship. When Vanessa was home, she was often distracted and not engaged with him. Their conversations were short and lacked warmth. Richard felt their relationship was becoming colder and more distant. He tried to speak with Vanessa about having a child, but she always gave vague promises and excuses. Her frequent absences and disinterest in building a family only deepened Richard's frustration. He felt increasingly unhappy and unfulfilled. Despite his wealth and success, Richard began reflecting more on his personal life and marriage. The lack of a child and Vanessa's continual absence left him feeling empty. He was haunted by the void in his life and the growing divide between him and his wife. 9 months later, Elena gave birth to twin boys. She felt a deep sense of triumph. "Yes, I've succeeded. Welcome to the world," she thought. These boys are Richard's children, and they will inherit his wealth. One afternoon, Richard was relaxing at home when the doorbell rang. He answered it and found a woman standing there introducing herself as Brenda, Elena's mother. Brenda looked nervous but determined to speak with him. She informed Richard that Elena had given birth to his children, twin boys. At first, Richard found the news unbelievable and laughed. "What are you saying, madam? Who is your daughter? Is she some kind of magician or miracle worker? I never even had intercourse with her. How could I possibly be the father of children I never conceived? Did you come to the wrong house? If you don't have anything meaningful to say, please leave," he said. Brenda stood there, torn and struggling to find the right words. She knew the real story, that Elena had used a condom Richard had discarded to get pregnant. Brenda was scared to tell him, worried he might become furious or even have her arrested for Elena's deception. Feeling trapped and unsure what to do, Brenda left Richard's house quickly. Back at home, Brenda told Elena about the conversation with Richard. Elena listened carefully and thought deeply. After hearing all the details, she decided she would confront Richard herself. She realized that explaining everything directly to Richard might be the best way to handle the situation and secure the support she needed. Brenda, feeling both anxious and determined, agreed it was time to face Richard. She knew this meeting could change everything. With her heart racing, Elena went to Richard's mansion and asked to speak with him in private. Richard, curious about what she had to say, agreed to see her. He led her to a quiet room and waited for her to explain. Elena, trying to stay calm despite her nerves, began to reveal the truth. She confessed that she had taken one of his used condoms and used it to get herself pregnant. She explained that she was desperate and saw this as her only chance to secure a better future for herself and her children. Elena admitted it wasn't right, but she felt she had no other choice. As Richard listened, his expression shifted from shock to anger. He couldn't believe what she had done and was furious that she had manipulated the situation to trap him. His emotions were a storm of betrayal and rage. Richard made it clear that he would never accept the children as his. He told Elena she would soon be hearing from his lawyers and warned her that she could end up in jail for what she had done. He refused to take any responsibility for the children and viewed her actions as nothing more than a manipulative scheme. The conversation ended with tension thick in the air, leaving the future uncertain for Elena as she walked away. When Richard's wife, Vanessa, returned home from one of her frequent trips, she immediately sensed that something was wrong. Richard was more distant than usual, and she noticed an uneasy atmosphere that she couldn't quite explain. Vanessa, always sharp and observant, decided to look into things herself. It didn't take long before she overheard rumors circulating around town, rumors that her husband had gotten their former cleaner, Elena, pregnant. The news hit Vanessa like a brick. How could Richard do something like this? It didn't seem possible. Her anger boiled over, and the moment she stepped into the house that evening, she confronted Richard. "Is it true?" she demanded, her voice trembling with a mix of rage and pain. "What have you been hiding? Did you get her pregnant?" Richard stood there speechless, unsure what to say or do. After a long pause, he finally told her what Elena had explained to him earlier. Vanessa was furious and determined to protect her marriage. She decided to confront Elena directly. She didn't know where Elena lived, so she asked the security guard who had worked at the estate for years. After some hesitation, he gave Vanessa Elena's address. Vanessa went to a small rundown apartment building where Elena lived. The neighborhood was poor and nothing like the luxurious life Vanessa was accustomed to, but that only made her more determined to put an end to the situation. When Elena opened the door, she was surprised to see Vanessa standing there. Vanessa didn't waste a moment and walked straight into the apartment. Her voice was cold as she spoke to Elena. She told her she knew about the plan to trap Richard and destroy their family. Elena tried to remain calm and said, "All I ever wanted was for him to take responsibility for our children. I'm not trying to take him from you." But Vanessa was furious. "Listen to me," Vanessa said sharply. "Richard will never be with you, and your children will never be part of our family." Vanessa warned Elena to stay away from her husband and her home or face serious consequences. With that, Vanessa left, leaving Elena standing in her apartment, shaken but still determined to fight for her children's future. The confrontation made it clear. The battle over Richard and the children was far from over. Vanessa returned home after confronting Elena, her emotions still running high as she walked into the living room. Richard looked up from his chair and asked where she had been. Vanessa hesitated for a moment, then told him she had gone to see Elena. Richard's face darkened with anger. "You went to see her? Why would you do that?" he demanded, his voice rising. "This whole mess is because of you. If you had been serious about getting pregnant, about taking care of things at home and not being distant from me, I wouldn't have had to look elsewhere. You are the reason I started bringing other women here in the first place." Vanessa's eyes flashed with anger at his words. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Are you seriously blaming me for this?" she shot back. "You're the one who can't keep your pants zipped. Don't you dare try to make this my fault, you roaming jerk." The room was filled with tension as they stood there glaring at each other. Richard was furious, but deep down, he knew that what Vanessa said wasn't entirely wrong. He had let his own desires and carelessness create this situation, but he couldn't bring himself to admit it. "You don't understand, Vanessa," Richard said, trying to regain control of the conversation. "If you were more present in our home, more involved, maybe things would have turned out differently. But you're always traveling, always focused on something else. I'm your husband, but it feels like I'm just a stranger in my own home. You've become so distant from me." Vanessa wasn't having it. "Don't try to turn this on me, Richard. You're a grown man responsible for your own actions. If you couldn't handle our situation, you should have talked to me instead of sleeping with other women. You're the one who's been foolish, not me." The argument escalated, with both of them finally saying the things they had been holding in for years. The tension between them had been simmering for so long, and now it had all come to a head. They both felt betrayed and hurt, but neither was willing to back down. Finally, after what felt like hours of arguing, they both fell silent, exhausted from the fight. The room was quiet, but the anger and frustration still hung in the air. Richard knew he had made mistakes, but he wasn't ready to admit them yet. Vanessa, on the other hand, had no intention of letting him off the hook so easily. One day, Elena was in her small, cluttered apartment when there was an unexpected knock at the door. Opening it, she found the doctor standing there with a worried look on his face. Alina was surprised and asked him how he had found her. The doctor entered the apartment and explained that he had learned Richard was taking the case to court. Then he revealed something startling. He said, "I believe the twins might actually be my children because I had been with you before Richard's procedure, which means I might be their biological father." Alina felt a wave of fear and panic. She had kept this secret from everyone, including her parents, and now the doctor knew the truth. Alina quickly asked the doctor to speak quietly, afraid her parents might overhear. The doctor, seeing her anxiety, made an offer. He said he could help her manipulate the DNA test results and even bribe the judge to ensure she won the case. But there was a condition. He demanded that Alina give him a percentage of whatever financial support she received and continue having a relationship with him whenever he wanted. Alina was shocked and disgusted by the doctor's demand. She didn't want to agree to such terms. The thought of being forced to keep seeing him and giving up a large share of what she might get was upsetting. But she knew she had very few options. If she lost the case, her children's future would be in jeopardy, and all her efforts would be for nothing. After a tense silence, Alina reluctantly agreed to the doctor's terms. She made him promise that everything would remain a secret, especially from Richard and his wife. The doctor, satisfied with the arrangement, left the apartment with a smug look. Alina was left alone, feeling trapped and conflicted. As she sat in her dimly lit apartment after the doctor left, she struggled to face the reality of her situation. She was deeply worried about the choices she had made, but she was also determined to secure a better life for her children. The day of the court hearing arrived, and the courtroom was filled with tension. Richard sat at one end, looking anxious. Alina was there too, clutching her papers, her heart pounding. The judge had been reviewing all the evidence, including the manipulated DNA results and the bribes arranged by the doctor. After what felt like an eternity, the judge entered the courtroom and took a seat. The room went silent as he prepared to announce his decision. Richard, already tense about the outcome, tried to stay calm. The judge began speaking, his voice steady and firm. He announced that the DNA test results, which had been carefully altered, showed that the twins were indeed Richard's children. Despite the deceitful method Alina had used to obtain the results, the judge had no choice but to accept them as valid evidence. The judge then delivered the verdict. "Richard, you are ordered to pay Alina $10 million in child support every month." The amount was to cover the children's needs and also to secure their future. Richard was stunned. His eyes widened in disbelief, and he sat there frozen. He had not anticipated such a large amount. The sum was overwhelming, and the weight of the situation hit him hard. The judge's decision was final, and Richard had no choice but to comply. The DNA results left no room for doubt or appeal. Alina, on the other hand, felt a mix of relief and triumph. The court's decision meant she would finally receive the financial support she needed for her children. She knew the journey had been difficult and filled with moral compromises, but the outcome gave her hope for a better future. As Richard left the courtroom, he was clearly upset. He had to face the consequences of his actions and the manipulation that had become part of the case. Alina watched him go, feeling a complex mix of satisfaction and triumph as she thought about what the future would hold for her and the twins. A week after Richard paid Alina the first $10 million, her life changed drastically. She had moved into a much larger and more comfortable house, showing off her newfound wealth. The cramped apartment she once lived in now felt like a distant memory. But things weren't entirely smooth. The doctor had been trying to reach Alina without success. He finally decided to show up in person at her new, elegant home. Looking frustrated and impatient, Alina had been ignoring his calls, knowing he was likely to come with more demands. When Alina opened the door, she was surprised to see the doctor standing there. She let him in but kept her demeanor cold. The doctor didn't waste any time. "Alina, I've been trying to reach you. I see you're now a big madam, but you haven't kept your promise. I'm still waiting for my percentage and for you to continue seeing me as we agreed." Alina stood her ground and replied, "I'm not giving you anything. You made a deal based on lies, and I've already paid the price. Now you're just trying to blackmail me." The doctor's face turned red with anger. "You can't do this. We had an agreement. If you don't follow through, I'll expose everything. People will find out about the fake DNA test and the bribes. We'll both be in serious trouble." Elena didn't back down. "Go ahead and try. If you make any trouble, I'll expose you too. I'll reveal how you manipulated the results and were involved in bribing officials. Your license will be revoked and both of us will end up in jail. If you're okay with that, go ahead." I said, "Go ahead." The doctor, realizing he was in a difficult position, tried to negotiate. "Okay, let's talk. Maybe we can work something out." But Elena wasn't interested in negotiating. "There's nothing to discuss. If you want to stay out of trouble, you'll leave me alone and keep quiet." Seeing he had no other option, the doctor agreed to leave. He walked out of Elena's house, frustrated and defeated. He was gone. Elena closed the door behind him, feeling a wave of relief and satisfaction. She knew she had secured her future and was ready to protect it from anyone who tried to take it away. As Elena looked around her new spacious home, she felt both satisfaction and caution. She had achieved what she wanted. Back at Richard's house, Vanessa was furious. She stormed into the living room where Richard was sitting, his face still showing the stress from the recent court case. "I can't believe you just gave Elena that kind of money without questioning it. Are you serious?" Vanessa shouted. "How could you be so careless and foolish? I thought you were educated and smarter than this. You're acting completely senseless." Richard looked up, trying to stay calm. "Vanessa, please, let me explain. I didn't want to cause any more trouble. The court made a final decision, and I thought it was best to settle things quickly and move on." Vanessa became even more furious. "Settle things quickly? You didn't even bother to investigate properly. I'm starting to think you were really involved with Elena in some deeper way. Make me understand, why else would you hand over such a large amount of money without doing your own checks? You just believed her? Just like that?" Richard tried to reason with her. "No, Vanessa, it's not like that. I just wanted to do what was right for the children. They're my responsibility now, and I want to make sure they're taken care of. I didn't want to drag the situation out and make things worse." Vanessa's frustration grew. "So now they're your kids, huh? Really? You're saying that so easily after handing over that much money. I don't understand how you could be so naive. What if Elena was playing you the entire time? The whole thing looks suspicious and manipulative." Richard sighed deeply. "I didn't want more conflict. I just wanted to settle it. Make sure the kids have what they need. I know it wasn't ideal, but I thought it was the best way to handle it, for the children's sake." Vanessa shook her head, her face flushed with anger. "Well, you've made a mess of things. You should have been more cautious and done your own investigation. Now we have to deal with the consequences of your decisions." Richard tried to calm her down. "We'll figure things out. I understand you're upset, but yelling at me won't solve anything. Let's try to walk through this together." Vanessa wasn't convinced. "I don't know how we're supposed to fix this. You've made things so much harder for us, and I'm worried about what's coming next. This situation is far from over. That's a huge amount of money." As Vanessa stormed off, Richard sat in silence, feeling the weight of her words. He knew the situation was complicated, and despite his intentions, everything had spiraled out of control. The problems between him and Vanessa were far from resolved, and he could only hope they'd find a way to manage the fallout from his decisions. Meanwhile, the doctor was growing increasingly frustrated. His financial situation was dire, with months of unpaid salary leaving him in a difficult position. He had once seen Elena as a source of easy money, but now his feelings had shifted. He was angry and desperate for cash. One afternoon, he decided to confront Elena directly. He went to her new luxurious house, hoping to get at least a portion of the money he believed she owed him. As he rang the doorbell and waited impatiently, he thought about how badly he needed the money to support his own family. When Elena opened the door, she was surprised to see him. She knew exactly why he was there and had been dreading this moment. She invited him inside, but her expression was cold and wary. "What do you want?" Elena asked, trying to sound indifferent. The doctor didn't waste any time. "Elena, I need money. Even if it's not the full percentage we agreed on, I need something. I've been waiting for weeks, and I can't keep living like this." Elena shook her head. "I'm not giving you any money. You made your bed with this deceit, and now you have to lie in it. If you try to threaten me, I'll make sure everyone knows about your involvement." "Do your worst." The doctor's face twisted with anger. "Is that so? Well, if you won't give me any money, then how about this? I want my twin boys back." Elena stared at him, shocked and appalled. "Are you joking? You're too broke to think you can just take my children. You must be out of your mind." The doctor's frustration boiled over. "You think this is a joke? I'm serious. If you won't help me, I'll make sure you regret it. I'll find a way to get what I want." Elena stood firm, her voice cold. "I suggest you leave now before things get worse for you. I won't give you anything, and I won't let you take my children. You're only making things worse for yourself." The doctor, seeing that Elena was resolute, turned on his heel and left the house in anger. As he walked away, he muttered under his breath about how he would deal with Elena. He was determined to find a way to get the money he needed, even if it meant taking drastic measures. Elena closed the door and leaned against it, feeling a mix of relief and unease. She knew the doctor was dangerous and that his threats were not to be taken lightly, but she also felt a strong resolve to protect her new life and her children at any cost. Growing increasingly worried about the doctor's threat, Elena decided to take drastic action. She bought a gun and made a plan to lure the doctor to a secluded location under the pretense of meeting him for a private discussion. One evening, Elena contacted the doctor and told him she wanted to meet in a quiet, remote place. The doctor, eager for the money he had been promised, agreed without hesitation. When he arrived at the meeting spot, Elena was already waiting. As he approached, Elena pulled out the gun and, without warning, shot him. The doctor fell to the ground, seriously wounded. Injured, Elena quickly fled the scene, leaving him behind. The doctor, though critically wounded, was rescued by a passerby and managed to survive. Meanwhile, he had confided in his wife about everything: Elena, the threats she made, and the plan to meet her at the secret location. So, when he didn't return home that night, his wife grew worried. She remembered the address her husband had given her in case something went wrong. It was Richard's house. The next morning, she went to Richard's mansion, frantic and anxious. She explained to Richard what had happened and how Elena had tricked her husband. Richard was furious. He immediately contacted the police and informed them of the situation. The police quickly launched an investigation, tracked down Elena, and arrested her for the attack. When the doctor recovered, he too was arrested for his involvement in the bribery and deceit. The judge who had accepted the bribe was also exposed, removed from his position, and arrested. 2 months later, life began to settle down for everyone. Vanessa, who had been deeply affected by the chaos, discovered that she was pregnant. She and Richard were overjoyed with the news. The couple focused on rebuilding their lives and their relationship. Richard had learned a painful lesson and was now fully committed to his wife. They worked on mending their marriage and planning for their future. Together, Richard and Vanessa's life slowly returned to normal, with the challenges they had faced serving as a strong reminder of the importance of trust and loyalty. In a quiet jail cell, Elena sat alone, staring at the small window that barely let in light. Her hands trembled slightly as she held a faded photo of her twin boys. She had gained money, status, and comfort, but lost her freedom and integrity in the process. She wondered if they would ever understand why she did what she did. Maybe one day they would see it not just as desperation, but as a mother's flawed attempt to secure a future for them. Elena sighed deeply. This was her consequence. Harsh, perhaps, but one she had earned. And yet, somewhere in the stillness of her heart, she held on to a sliver of hope that her sons might still live the life she once dreamed of.